Order. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad absent. Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Serko.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I don't think we have any presentations tonight or personal appearances, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Kras to make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've submitted my written report, but I'd also like to give you an update on the Hawk Ridge project. The contractor, as weather permits, has been continuing to work. If you get a chance to get up and see the north shelter, you can see the fireplaces are in place, and the you can see the masonry for the restrooms. Also, the metal skeleton for the amphitheater has been installed, and even though the weather's been cold, with the lake being frozen, made it easier for them to deck the boardwalk, so they've made quite a bit of progress on that. As weather permits, they will continue to work on the project. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Just one. I think I know the answer, but it kind of went without a lot of fanfare. The 155th Street project is complete and the bridge is now open. Is that correct?
The road is open. We still have a little bit of grading work to do in the spring, along with we did not get the road entirely striped. We need to put the edge striping on yet, so all that'll occur in the spring.
And the ones that do know about it are happy that it's open. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Kras. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council, I have submitted a written report as well. Just a couple highlights. First of all, from my staff, we wanted to extend a thank you to the council and the park board this weekend. Although the RAC has been open for several months now, this weekend was our first opportunity to officially play basketball games, youth basketball leagues there. So it was really cool to see the facility set up, the players on one side, the parents in the bleachers, and just watching that facility function exactly how we intended it to. Nothing but compliments, no complaints about the facility. So it was just a wonderful experience. And I know Todd, my athletic coordinator, is really excited and happy to have his own gym. So he just wanted me to pass that along to you guys, that it was a really great Saturday. We also, our staff installed 5 memorial benches along the trail system in the parks that were donated over the past year throughout the holidays. And we've also already sold 2 more for this upcoming year and 1 bench at the Hawk Ridge Park playground, upcoming playground. So that seems to be a popular item for residents to do in the park system. And finally, just a quick reminder that February 8th is our Valentine's Ball coming up for the daddy-daughter Valentine's Ball. So just plug that a little bit. Any questions or to register, just contact the Parks and Rec office. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Mr. Holman.
Just as a recap, I'm a little bit surprised that we're getting the interest in the benches, as they were kind of the higher end of the price list as far as donations, but we also still offer the bricks at certain times of years, as well as tree dedications, the benches, and then was there something else on the list as well, Nathan?
Yes, sir. Actually, all of the items can be purchased at any time. We just kind of push them at certain times of the year. There were the honor bricks, the memorial benches, the tribute trees, and then anybody who wanted to can go even further and do like small shelters or picnic areas like that.
Good to see people are contributing to the city that way. Thank you,
The benches are very popular along the trails. We have a good trail system in town, and so we have a lot of folks that they want their rest stops, so that's what they're for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. I would ask Mr. Eakey to make a report for the Communications Department.
Thank you, sir. Wanted to use this opportunity, the first report of the year, to remind residents and also give the council an update of the website's Report a Concern function. This is a function where residents can log onto the website and can report just about any concern that may need to go to a staff member here at the city. This includes the police department, codes department, public works, parks and recreation, and even just a general area. You may be wondering, well, why would I want to log onto the website when I could just call and have someone pick up the phone? Well, if you can imagine a problem any time of day or any time of the hour, you're able to get on the website and find information not only about who to call, but also can report the problem right then and there and have it routed to the right person automatically. This also allows multiple departments to work on an individual concern. So if there's something that both Public Works and Parks needs to work on, we're able to collaborate on that. In 2018 alone, we had roughly 124 tickets opened up on the Report a Concern system, so different items that residents reported. In the lifetime of the system, so over the last 3 years, we've had about 554 that have been reported through the website and closed. On average, it takes about 10 days from the opening of that ticket to the final resolution and closing of that ticket. So typically, when a resident's able to go to the website and enter their information, we can get things done a lot faster because we have exact addresses, contact information, and other pertinent information ready to go at our fingertips. To access this, residents just have to go to raymore.com/report-a-concern, or they can go to the website, just raymore.com, and it is one of the top links right under the most requested under the search bar. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Mike, you can a complainant or somebody that's calling in something can also take a picture of it and submit that along with the submission. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can do that in a safe manner, especially if it's a pothole out there, but they can submit a photo with that. I just wanted to remind folks. Yes, sir, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does that replace or is in addition to the areas like you can report a street light that's out or a pothole?
Same program.
Same program.
They typically are then automatically routed to the individuals. So when you're reporting a street light, gets reported to the Public Works operation individual who then can notify the contractor to that location.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And just a reminder to the public that are watching, that particular feature, do not use that for emergencies like 911, or if you feel like you need somebody out there, you need to be calling 911.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Eakey. Just to update the council, next Monday night, February 4th, is a work session. 4 items currently on the agenda: a hoarding ordinance update, Amazon delivery vehicles. Mr. Berenzen asked that be on for a discussion by the council. Kentucky Road Project, we're going to be making some recommendations relative to the Kentucky Road Project to the council. And we need to get an Oates Bus contract clarification on what the council's thinking was on one element of the contract. So we're going to be talking with you about that. I would also ask, busy times, I made it through my year without bringing the council in on a holiday or another night when there's a holiday. I was wondering if the council would indulge me and be willing to meet on President's Day, February 18th. The topic is going to be annexation. We have moved into the phase where we want to get final blessing from the council on the area that's going to actually be studied. And I thought it would be a good idea to move that forward. Great.
Can make it that night. Okay.
Thank you all very much. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
All right. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Fearborn? All right. Well, next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have 3 items on our consent agenda tonight. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include the following. Item A, City Council minutes, January 14, 2019. Item B, Recreation Park Wireless System, acceptance and final payment. Item C, 2018 Sidewalk Project, acceptance and final payment.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, all 3 items, A, B, and C. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll now move into unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3424 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3424 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, terminating tax increment financing within the Good Ranch redevelopment area, dissolving the special allocation fund, and authorizing certain actions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3424?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Bill 3424, termination of the Good Ranch Tax Increment Finance Plan.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3424. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3420 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3420 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the final plat for Westbrook at Creekmore 15th plat, lots 406 through 431 and tract RR, located in Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3420?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3420, Westbrook at Creekmore, 15th final plat.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded to approve Bill 3420. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3422 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3422 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2013 capital budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3422?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3422, Budget Amendment, Police Firing Range.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3422. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could we please have the second reading of Bill 3423 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3423 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2019 operating budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3423?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3423, Budget Amendment, Department Organization Charts.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3423. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3421 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3421 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with A Graphic Resource for printing and mailing services for the review.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3421?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3421, Agreement with Graphic Resources for Printing and Mailing Services.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3421. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll now move on to new business. Could I have the first reading of Bill 3425 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3425 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing an agreement for the purchase of a mobile communications / command post vehicle.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, sir?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Murdoch to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is in all of the documents in your council packet in relation to the GSA contract that we're seeking with LDV Incorporated to construct the mobile command post. We ended up with a very similar drawing. It's going to be really hard to see. It is projected up there for the public, but from the work session that we did in December, there was some very minor alterations that were done throughout the negotiating process with them to try to bring the cost back into the parameters that we had discussed in December. And so what we are seeking tonight is your approval to go ahead and move forward with the command post vehicle and the design that we shared with you in December. Be happy to answer any questions about it.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. A couple of quick questions. I had some questions regarding this project and just wanted to kind of clarify for those who are listening or maybe watching on how we got to this point with regard to this particular vehicle's design and costs in particular. I know we was part of the budget discussions back in before October, how we got to here, and if you could just give indulge me for a brief second on, you know, how we got to this point and maybe some others with regard to staff's work to this point.
Sure. So last year we formed, after we figured out that we would probably have some ideas within the budget to do this particular vehicle, we formed a work group among staff that consisted of myself, the chief of police, and numerous others to look into the feasibility of even being able to do this particular vehicle. This is a result of our current command post or communications trailer being out of date and having, as you guys have been told and seen, it is damaged, it has water leakage with it, and we need something that can take the city of Raymore well into the next couple of decades. So with that in mind, the command group and we went and we started looking at multiple companies throughout the country, and then we solicited initial drawings and quotes from those particular companies. Upon receiving those, we narrowed those down. We narrowed those down to the companies that were able to meet our specifications in design. And then we started working with those specifically to make sure that the actual final design would meet the needs of the city of Raymore for up to 20 years is what we're looking at with this particular vehicle. We went with LDV, not only because they're the largest producer of these vehicles in the country, especially in terms of specialty vehicles, emergency response vehicles. They are the largest producer in the country, but they were the most responsive to fitting within our budget parameters and redesigning the vehicle specifically for us, changing the layout and making sure that we got everything we possibly could out of that particular vehicle. We initially were going to go with a truck style. We ended up with more of a walk-in vehicle so that somebody can see the driver even when you're back in the main part of the vehicle, which we all felt was a very, very important part as it would go to any particular scene. So that's kind of how we got to this particular location.
Okay.
The only thing that Ryan didn't mention was even prior to him reaching out to the manufacturers, you know, the top ones, you know, throughout the country, the work group toured a number of vehicles throughout the metropolitan area, Olathe, the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, and a number of others, and even had plans sent to us from companies that were in the process, or from jurisdictions that were in the process of having vehicles built out, like Lenexa. So, you know, we were looking at, you know, what those designs looked like from other jurisdictions in formulating our plans when we made contact with those companies. So.
Excellent. Thank you. And some of the, if I could follow-up question on, with regard to this particular size of vehicle and the cost behind it, I know, as you said earlier, the current version is beyond, for my term, your repair and capabilities that we need. So the discussions with the working group determined that this size is necessary to support. And from an area support, what other options are available within the area of like vehicle?
Couple of quick things. So our current mobile trailer really only has the capacity to host a couple of dispatchers and has absolutely no meeting capability for a command group to actually be able to meet within that particular vehicle on scene. It does not have that capability. So with this particular vehicle now, we do have the dispatch capabilities located in the back, so we retain those capabilities, and in fact we'll be able to add the third dispatch, which we've always wanted to be able to do with that to make sure that we have those dedicated positions in the back. Then we also now are allowed to have the incident command going within this particular vehicle now that we have the conference capability up front as well, which becomes a very, very big component, obviously, of managing any scene that we would arrive at with this particular vehicle.
Thank you.
And the council may remember when we had the officer-involved shooting here with multiple jurisdictions in February of 2018, you know, the Sheriff's Department very graciously brought their command post. You know, obviously, response time, you know, is impacted by the fact that, you know, they're mobilizing, they're coming from a distance. And so, you know, that was an instance in which, you know, we needed
to have the capability because of the number of agencies that were involved in that situation and the number of folks that responded to the scene. So we definitely needed that capability. And you know, as Ryan has pointed out, you know, obviously this vehicle will take us far into the future. I know in talking with Sheriff Weber that, you know, they are thinking the same thing. Their command post is very out of date and is not large enough to you know, provide the capacity for a scene like that we had back in February.
So even the county vehicle is not, have the capacity to do what this one will be able to do?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Murdock.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More of a comment than a question. As I read through the 13-plus pages of itemized, detailed lists of what would be in there, time and time again, I saw things that would prolong the life of the vehicle, even like little things like the wiring is one single wire from one where it's connected all the way to the other end, no splicing and things like that, and then grommets to protect the wiring. But one of the things that I was very impressed with was the capability to not only see the back of the vehicle as you're backing up, but also the part where you can communicate with a spotter in the back from the driver through the vehicle, and they can hear in the back end. I thought that was a really impressive idea, because in a situation where we're using it, there's going to be a lot of stress associated with it, and we certainly don't need stress with damaging the vehicle. So I thought that was really a good part to put in there.
I appreciate that. They did a wonderful job working with us on the design all the way through. And like we said, I mean, this is truly, we tried to think ahead, you know, where are we going to be in 10 and 20 years? And we still want this to be obviously at the forefront of law enforcement and emergency response.
Okay. Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a comment and then a request. The comment is, I appreciate the process that you guys did putting this whole project together, putting a committee together and the due diligence, and I thought you did a great job of kind of holding our hands through the whole process. I know this is something you had in your back pocket for a while. I could tell you were somewhat prepared before we went into it, but it was a good job, and Mr. Burdock, I appreciate all the information. My request is, I noticed on social media, somebody, because this is such a large ticket item, somebody made the blanket comment, why are we spending $500,000? How many hostage situations do we have in Raymore? Could you just kind of go over the top 3 or 4 things that something like this could be useful for our city, and how it would help us, and very quickly, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so just from my department, it would obviously be used in any kind of natural disaster that we might have within the region to be able to set up an emergency response command post. Just I'm off the top of my head, any natural disaster from my department, if we have any major incident in Raymore. Obviously, Chief could speak to a couple of the other incidents that it's going to become very, very valuable to as well, and I know she and I have talked about that, so I'll let her hit a couple of those as well. As
I mentioned, you know, the officer-involved shooting, you know, where we are amassing, you know, individuals to, you know, respond to the scene of any major incident, any major crime scene. You know, obviously, you know, we have a number of those, you know, places that we will go and mobilize, you know, officers for an extended period of time when you need to be operating out of the vehicle. In addition, and Ryan mentioned natural disasters, you know, when we contemplate losing communications, obviously this vehicle, we talk about it being a command post, but it's really a communications vehicle. So for us to be able to go mobile should something happen to City Hall, or we have some type of disaster where we lose communications throughout the city, we will be able to go mobile with communications.
Chief, could you also add to, you briefed me on this the other day about South Metro's involvement with this project. I haven't really heard much about them because they've been involved as well.
They have, and I think Ryan mentioned it when we had the work session with you all, that we invited, from the beginning, we invited Chief Stevens from South Metro to sit on the committee because we felt that it was important because of hazmat situations and other instances in which South Metro might be mobilized where we need to provide them workspace, and obviously we dispatch for them, you know, as well, and now West Peculiar in addition. But Chief Stevens has been involved in the process from the beginning, and even took a couple of the tours with us when we went to see those communications vehicles in other jurisdictions here in the metropolitan area.
Yeah, so it's a much bigger footprint than just Raymore PD.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is, and I should mention, Mr. Mayor, also that Chief Stevens is being incredibly helpful in helping us to get ready to train drivers of the vehicle, as well as he's offered that program to staff here in Raymore to help us be ready to operate the vehicle safely. So that's been another added benefit of having him.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You actually covered most of my question. I just wanted to remind anybody watching that we are looking at other entities to help share some of the burden or the cost of this, South Metro being one of them, and remind them this is a regional asset. And I know that we don't want to spend our money, for the entire county, but this is a regional asset. And along with that will be opportunities in the future also to maybe recoup some costs in the future as well too, regionally. So
We sure hope so.
thank you, Chief.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I want to reach out to you, Mr. Murdoch, and all police chief, everyone who's been involved in this, and the people watching understand this has been a long process. It's not something you just jumped into. You've done your due diligence. You've taken trips. You've gone out and seen other vehicles. You've actually taken the time and done the work to know that the item we would get for the money for the city would be the best item possible. You've done a great job. You guys worked very hard, and I think a lot of people listening tonight or watching do not understand how much time and effort it's taken to come up with this situation, this vehicle. It's a great-looking vehicle. It's going to do a great service. I think our drone system will be able to be utilized off this vehicle, so that's
correct,
great.
yes.
You use a drone system while you're out in the field, amongst everything else, and being tied to other groups. I think it's great, but I want people to know you guys have done a lot of work, a lot of travel. You guys have really got down to the nitty-gritty on this, so it's a great vehicle. We've got the best price, the best for the stuff we need out of that vehicle, and we thank you very much for all the work you've done. You've done a great, great job.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Murdoch, for the report, and Chief also. In the packet, it says that, first of all, we amounted the budget, we budgeted for this $500,000. The amount of request/contract is $440,829. When I go to the contract, I'm going to ask you to tell me what the difference is here. In the contract, box 13, I believe, I'm scrolling there right now. I'm sorry, box 14. Last bullet of box 14. Based on the sales reported for previous period, the total estimated contract award value is hereby revised to reflect the new 20-year value of $202,500. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm in box 14.
Not seeing where you're
I'm
at.
not seeing where you're at.
Okay, I am in,
What page number are you at?
let me see, page 130 of the packet.
Oh, that doesn't help.
That's what I'm looking at right here, Reg. Page 130.
Key you want to answer? Yeah, I just have the way we did it. Okay.
Yeah.
She gave it to me.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you, Chief. If you go to item 14, box 14, I'm looking at the last sentence.
Uh-huh.
Based on sales reported, all of that, the total estimated contract award value is hereby revised to reflect a new 20-year value of, is that right? $202,500,000?
That's going to actually not be correct, and I will contact LDV to be sure that we get that number corrected. What they're doing is they're giving us the value of what the shell of the vehicle is, excluding all of the equipment that's going to be in it.
So it's got 3 more zeros than it should have.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I was reading that as $202,000, but then I read it third time and it says $202 million. Wow,
Right.
okay, if you can clarify that and let me
will.
know, I have no problem with this, it's just, those numbers just, there was a discrepancy.
Right. I agree, sir. I'll get it corrected for you first thing in the morning.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ryan. there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 3425.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3425, Communications Vehicle Contract.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3425. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. I'm in support of this vehicle for a number of reasons. One, it goes right along with what staff and Mr. Fearborn have been pushing for a number of years. We are rapidly growing and evolving. We are a first-class city, and there are needs of a first-class growing city, and this is one of those things. And unfortunately, when people think about this type of item, they think of just like the social media comment, the first thought is the command post at a barricaded hostage situation. And that certainly is a use of this vehicle. But this thing is probably going to be the most versatile vehicle that we will have of all the pieces of equipment within the entire city inventory. It could be used for a tornado or flood response. It could be used, God forbid, in the event of a structural collapse of this building for the meeting of our government. It could be used for Red Cross scenarios. Police functions are just the ones that hit the news headlines on the 6 o'clock news and in Hollywood movies, unfortunately. This thing's going to have a long life to it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but once this is done, if we're able to get everything done we want to, we will be the only city that has a true mobile 911 command post. Is that correct?
We are working closely with Mark, and I am scheduled to go in front of their technical committee to discuss exactly that. So yes, that's what our hope is.
That's huge in the fact that right now, if we lose ability to accept incoming 911 calls or dispatch out, we have to transfer that function somewhere. We're going to have to contact Belton, or we're going to have to contact the Cass County Sheriff's Office and really scramble quickly to transfer that function for a temporary time period to another agency using dispatchers that don't know our geography. And so there's great value in that. It's unheard of, and it is unprecedented, and it's on the verge of the future. It's great stuff. So I'm very much in support of this. I know it's a big chunk of the budget. Everybody looks at those dollars and says, wow, that's a lot. But this is going to provide us a vehicle life of 20 years and maybe beyond, and it's, nobody likes paying for insurance until it comes time that you need that insurance, and that's exactly what this vehicle is.
Yeah, I think, and also, Ryan, you kind of undersold it with regard to the National Incident Command System. I mean, all the events that we plan on having in the next year, 2 years down the road, having an incident command center at that location is almost required by the federal government these days, and you as our emergency management coordinator understand that better than anybody.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's going to definitely get its use.
Yeah, exactly. It's Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we were all stumbling and thinking way too slow down here on your question, council member, this is actually the summary page for the entirety of the GSA contract. And so this contract, based on sales during the previous contract period for GSA, they're estimating total sales from all entities at $202,500,000.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Either that or we're getting a heck of a deal on a shell.
Well, I'll chime in if I have the privilege. Councilman Townsend turned to me, he says, heck, we should buy it and just sell it.
All right, well, I think we're done. Anybody else? If not, and there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have on the next item is the Show Me Green Sales Tax Holiday. We have options. We have option Bill 3427A and Bill 3427B. I would ask Jeannie to please read title only for both of those bills as presented. Thank you.
The first reading of Bill 3427A, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, committing the City of Raymore to participate in the Show Me Green Sales Tax Holiday in 2019 only. The first reading of Bill 3427B by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, committing the City of Raymore to participate in the Show Me Green sales tax holiday in perpetuity.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Warner to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Several years ago, the General Assembly enacted legislation which established the Show Me Green sales tax holiday. This holiday exempts state sales tax on the sale of certain Energy Star certified appliances on an annual basis, April 19th through the 25th. Municipalities may also participate to have the city sales tax exempt from the sale of these same items. Ordinances have been prepared for your consideration to participate in a one-year basis or in perpetuity. That concludes staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I read through this, and I've asked this question before, but I would definitely like to clarify it, and I know that both bills, whatever option the council chooses to go with, whereas municipalities may participate in the holiday and allow city sales tax from the sales of these items to be exempted. Are we, in this bill, are we planning on exempting all of the sales tax for the energy efficiencies? Meaning the city sales tax, the CIDs, whatever the sales tax is associated with that appliance?
We do not have control over the CIDs. They each make their determination at their annual meeting. I believe, I want to say at this point that they are all on, and they also participate now.
Very good.
The state, obviously, it's a state-run program. The state exempts their sales tax. Most of the surrounding municipalities also exempt the sales tax on the holiday.
Thank you.
Some of whom have chosen to go in perpetuity. Others of us, like us, do it a year at a time. Correct?
That's correct. There are a couple of notable exceptions to that do not provide the exemption, but most do.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of one of these items, at least.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3427A, participation in 2019 only for the Show Me Green tax holiday.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve first reading of Bill 3427A. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Just a comment. The council, as long as I've been on here, and know prior to that, because I've purchased items during this time, have granted this exemption to the sales tax on this day. And it's been in the one-year realm, which I think is the more prudent way to go. Well, I think it's a good idea, and we encourage people to buy energy-efficient appliances. A decision to perpetuity would commit us to a scenario that we don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years. If we had a severe economic recession or there were some other outlying factors, we would then be basically chained to that decision. I think it's a more wise and prudent decision to stay with the one-year participation.
Good point. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 19-04?
The reading of Resolution 19-04, a resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the extension of the preliminary plat for the estates and estate villas of the Good Ranch, located in part of the northeast quarter of Section 29 and part of the north half of Section 28, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, all in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, sir?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. The preliminary plat for the estates and estate villas of the Good Ranch was initially approved by the council back in 2007. In 2017, council granted a 2-year extension of the expiration of that preliminary plat, which is set for February 12th of 2019. Over the past several years and this past year, staff's been working with the developer, Randall Limer, who is here this evening, representing Great Plains Developments, about options for the property, talking about scenarios for development of the property itself. I do want to note that it was back in 2014 that the developer actually went into a master development agreement with the city, setting forth parameters for development of that property, specifically towards our stormwater control and stormwater treatment ordinances. That was the time, if you recall, about the stream buffer ordinance. And so we had in great length discussions with the developer about that. And so we currently have this master development agreement for the property. Developer is requesting a 2-year extension this evening. That was to be granted. It would extend the expiration date to February 12th of 2021. I do want to note the resolution 19-04 is written as a 2-year extension. With that being said, staff is only recommending a 1-year extension this evening, which we've done on most of our other subdivisions that still have preliminary plats that have been extended. Part of the reason for that, honestly, with the preliminary plat being approved back in 2007, the first extension was 2008, so that was 10 years ago. And while we have the master development agreement that does address the stormwater and stormwater treatment concerns, there are other codes changes that we've gone through that would apply if this were a new development coming in. So after the 10 years, we feel like over the next year, if the 1 year is granted, that we would want to work closely with the developer to see what could be done rather than continuing to extend and extend. 10 years is a long time for a preliminary plat. So we will work with the developer over the next year on that aspect of it. So we would recommend the 1-year extension this evening. If council does accept staff's recommendation, resolution 1904 would need to reflect the 1-year extension.
Thank you,
That
Jim.
concludes staff report.
Thank you. Mr. Limer, would you care to comment?
Thank you. My name is Randall Limer. I'm with Great Plains Development, and thank you for hearing us tonight. I don't have a lot to add outside of the staff report. I did request a 2-year extension, and although it seems like a long time from 2007, there wasn't a lot of residential single-family development going on, as you know, for a number of years after that. It's kind of like a fine wine. It's not ready until it's time. You don't pick a tomato when it's green. We really want to develop this property as badly as the city does. We know it's a critical area that you've planned, and we've certainly got a massive investment here. We have been hesitant to take the step before the last, I'd say, 24 months or so. Situation has really changed. Economics have changed. I think we've got a little bit of traction, and I think we're in a position to try to get something put together. If the council believes 1 year is appropriate, that will be accepting of that recommendation. We requested 2 years just because, it takes time to put things together. I was standing before you here 2 years ago and got a 2-year extension on this one, as well as the Eagle Glen apartment ground. It took us 2 years, but we finally put together that deal for the Eagle Glen apartment ground, and we're looking forward to them breaking ground this spring. So. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to field them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Are there any questions of staff or Mr. Limer? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Perhaps best suited for Mr. Zur. Mr. Carteret let us know that Resolution 1904 is written for 2 years, but the recommendation is for 1 year. Will a standard motion, should that be the choice, to approve this for 1 year be acceptable, or do we need to approve or have a motion to approve and then an amendment to change it to 1 year?
I believe Mr. Fearborn might well be responding to this, Councilman.
Thank you.
The Mayor Pro Tem and I have had a conversation about this. I've recommended him to keep it as clean as possible, to actually ask for an amendment and then get the vote on the amendment and then subsequently vote on the amended bill.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification from Mr. Carteret. I believe, as I went through this today, this is the area that's boundaried by the 2 roads that have been constructed at an angle off of Hubuck Hill there, or North Cass Parkway, where it comes down at an angle to the south. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
It's very difficult to read the small print,
It is, yes. So Brook Parkway would be on the west side of this, which Brook Parkway is currently barricaded off. The southern part of this property would be the extension of the North Cass Parkway, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
I was just going to make a comment. Since I've been on the council, this may have been the only two-year extension that we've done. I can remember the words of Councilman Moorhead still kind of ring in my ears that he liked the do a one-year extension because he liked the developer to come back in a year, tell us what's going on, what's changed, kept the communication process going. So that's why it's going to be my recommendation that we just do a one-year extension at this time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, hearing none, no one else, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 34, or excuse me, Resolution 19-04.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we amend Resolution 1904 to a one-year extension.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve an amendment.
Point of order. Do we need, I'm going to ask parliamentarian, do we need to bring this to the floor first before and then have an amendment on that, on the motion to bring it to the floor?
Well, I think that was the original question, then Mr. Fearborn said that they'd spoken and...
That, oh, okay, I have no problem with that. It's just, little, I thought it was a little bit different.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. So we're going to vote on the amendment at this time to make it a one-year contract or one-year extension. And it's been seconded. Any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the motion? The amendment carries 7-0. So I would entertain a motion to dispose of the amended resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 1904, extension states of the Good Ranch preliminary plat.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 1904 as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3426 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3426 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Geotechnology, Inc. to provide on-call material testing services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the engineering division is going to be taking on more in-house design of our capital improvement projects, we do need the ability to gather baseline information for these projects, such as subsurface excavation and also some material testing to go along with that. We are recommending that we enter into a contract with Geotechnology on an on-call basis to assist us with that.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Krass? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3426.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3426, award of contract on-call materials testing services.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3426. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3428 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3428 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Tasco LLC for the Park House demolition, city project number 19-318-201, in the amount of $18,800.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council. This project is kind of a phased project of one of our capital improvement projects for this fiscal year. Within the CIP, it is listed as the Recreation Park Pavilion project. The phase one is the removal of the park house. So this is the demolition of the park house, leveling that property in that particular area, and then later this year we'll go back and we'll build a picnic shelter in that location. So we have submitted, opened this out for bid. We received bids. This has gone to the Park Board last week, and a contract with Tasco is before you now. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman?
Did you give any consideration to having Mr. Rulo give the presentation tonight for this item? I still remember his impassioned plea to the Parks Board when I served on there that this building was crumbling. In fact, I stopped him after slide 6, and he continued to go on. I told him, "You've made your point, Mr. Rulo," so I'm sure he will be glad to see this item go forward tonight.
Yes, sir. We've been drawing straws on who gets to take the first swing with the hammer, so.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
There's nothing else. I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 3428.
Mr. Mayor, move that we approve Bill 3428, award a contract Park House demolition at Recreation Park.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3428. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3429 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3429 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Brandy Electric, Inc. for the Recreation Park Ball Field Lights, City Project Number 19-317-201, in the amount of $89,950.
Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Again, this project is one that has been in the works for several years in our capital improvement plan. This adds lights on the 2 machine pitch T-ball fields at Recreation Park. This will complete the lighting of the entire complex. One thing that's important about this, in just recent weeks, we've been working with USSSA, a lot of major tournament providers, and the addition of lights in this park automatically brings in machine pitch tournaments at the state level, qualifier tournaments. So we know this is going to be well received in the metro area. We did open this out for bid, received bids. The Park Board has seen this and approved last week, and it is before you now for approval. Thank you.
How were you so far off on your estimate of what that would cost? Or you were off $50 there?
Excellent question. Actually, when we opened this out for bid, we had a couple different proposals, and both were over budget. We were able to negotiate that down, and my staff took over some of the repair of the soil and the sod and planting of the grass, and we were able to bring that in with the budget.
Just kidding you about it, but good explanation.
I wanted to be under budget,
You were prepared,
sir.
man. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Yes, Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mustang, thank you for that. I'm really happy that we can actually add to our parks where we can actually bring more people in, like you talked about tournaments, get the lighting in. A number of my grandkids play there year after year. And without the lighting, sometimes it gets dark quick. I'm really happy we're getting the lighting in, but we can attract people to our city to buy or eat, visit, be here on a weekend to have those tournaments. To me, it's always a mainstream for the future. Be able to have more people come here so we can develop these fields of play to draw people from outside our area into here so they can see who we are and what we do. And I thank you for that. It's a great idea.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you, Nathan. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3429.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3429, award of contract, Recreation Park Ball Field Lights.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3429. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3430 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3430 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Rockin Excavating LLC for the Recreation Park Pond Rehabilitation, City Project Number 19-299-201, in the amount of $59,700.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Again, this is one of our capital improvement projects. A few years ago, when the RAC was being built, and we knew that the recreation pond would be kind of the main landscape, the main view site out of that building, we wanted to do some improvements to that and just make it more attractive. There's a lot of vegetation that grows on there on the surface during the summertime. This project is essentially going to kind of dredge that out, clean up the bank, and really make this pond a stormwater detention pond, help drainage, all of those things. It's a great project. We're excited to do it. We opened this out for bids in December. Park Board reviewed and approved this last week and recommends this contract to you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Well, it's definitely been needed for a while, so I appreciate this project a lot. Is there any questions of staff? Mr. Holman?
Mr. Mustine, I remember, and I apologize, I didn't get a chance to look into the packet at the details of this, but it seems like a couple of years ago on the capital improvement plan, we had this split into two halves. Is that still what this is, or is this the project in its entirety?
This is in its entirety.
That's good. I didn't want to have to wait a second year. Yeah, reducing that algae bloom will improve that, improve the fishing and the aesthetics and everything else. So this is a great project. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The algae bloom itself is a clear indication, if you study biology, that the pond will die. It will be gone soon if we don't do this. As ponds cover up with that vegetation, it's because there's very few other things that can survive in that deoxygenated waterway. And if we do not do this, it will dry up and we'll have to figure out some other more costly thing to do with it. So it needs to be done.
Anyone else? Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
There's nothing else for staff. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3430.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Bill 3430, award a contract, recreation park rehabilitation.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3430. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3431 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3431 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Brenton Electric Company for on-call electrical services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Eakey to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The contract before council tonight with Brenton Electrical is for on-call electrical needs at City Hall and city facilities and will go to support the Buildings and Grounds Department. Staff advertised a request for qualifications and received received 3 responses on January 4th, one of which was non-responsive. Staff evaluated the qualifications and determined Brenton to be the best overall, lowest, and best bidder. This agreement will set the cost for a variety of electrical services, and staff will determine the necessary scope of work on a case-by-case basis as necessary. In the past year, we had less than $10,000 of electrical projects and needs throughout city facilities. Typically, these range from things like fixing a ballast or a light or individual electrical boxes that need to be repaired throughout our facilities. I'm free to take, or happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3431.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3431, award of contract on-call electrical services.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3431. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3432 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3432 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending a contract with CFS Engineers for the TB Hanna Station project in the amount of $21,000, and to meet construction timelines, the mayor has authorized this to be read as an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. And prior to calling on Mr. Mustine to make the staff report, I would point out to the council that there are new copies of the bill itself in front of you for this particular item. We had a couple of Scribner's errors that needed to go in. One, I left the emergency read out of one of the sections, and Ms. Werner caught that. She also noted that the dates were wrong on it. We had intended to bring this to you at a different point in time. So both of those have been corrected on that bill that's in front of you, and I would ask Mr. Mustine to make the staff report on this item.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. As Mr. Fearborn indicated, this was intended to come to you at a different point in time, but the process, it is the right time because we just approved the MOU with Variety KC. The council will remember Variety KC donated $135,000 to do some different things with the project, the original scope of the project. Because of those things, some specialty items and some additional engineering that we needed to have done so that we can expedite this project and get that moving forward is before you. And that is why we're here before you now, to amend that contract. The emergency read is so that we can stay on track and on target and basically get out to bid and get this thing under construction in a timely manner. So it's all outlined there in the addendum that they provided. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Musteen? Thank you, sir.
That's my last time tonight.
That's it. Don't jinx yourself there. Okay, as this is I did authorize this as an emergency read. Could I please, do we need to pass the first one?
That's correct, sir.
Motion first, okay. So I would entertain a motion for the disposal of the first reading of Bill 3432.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Bill 3432, Contract Amendment CFS Engineers.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3432. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Just one item, sir. Whenever we get an item listed for emergency read, I give that a double look because it is a change in the process. It does not give everyone the normal route because there's typically a second reading and a second opportunity to review this. However, this is one I must commend you and staff for bringing to us as an emergency read. There were circumstances that changed here, positive circumstances, because we got the donation from Variety KC, and because of the need to make sure we keep our promises to the citizens of Raymore for the GeoBond completion projects, or completion of the GeoBond projects, this is necessary. And so I thank you for bringing this forward tonight, sir.
Well, thank you. Right. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. As this is been authorized as an emergency read, I would ask Jeannie to please read the second reading of Bill 3432 in its entirety.
The second reading of Bill 3432 in its entirety, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending a contract with CFS Engineers for the TB Hanna Station project in the amount of $21,000, and to meet construction timelines, the mayor has authorized this to be read as an emergency. Whereas the City Council awarded a design and consulting contract for the TB Hanna Station spray ground and playground, and whereas the city accepted a donation from Variety Kansas City, changing the scope of work to add inclusive features for people of all abilities, and whereas it is necessary and desirable to have the engineer review and revise design and construction documents for the TB Hanna Station, and whereas this work is in addition to the scope of services in the initial contract with CFS Engineers. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the city manager is hereby directed to execute a contract addendum in the amount of $21,000 with CFS Engineers for the TB Hanna Station project. Section 2, the city manager is authorized to execute the contract attached as Exhibit A and to approve change orders for this project within established budget constraints. Section 3, effective date. The effective date of approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and attestation by the city clerk. Emergency reading. This bill is declared and authorized as an emergency in order to meet construction timelines. Section 5, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Duly read this first time this 28th day of January 2019. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 28th day of January 2019 by the following vote.
Thank you. The corrected version is uncorrect.
Yes.
It was missing item section 4, which is the section 5 as read tonight. So, but I'm cool with that, too.
We'll get that correct, well,
Okay.
we'll correct that on the copy that you are signing, sir.
All right, that would be good.
To be as was just now read.
All right, thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3432.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3432, Contract Amendment, CFS Engineers.
And I will again second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded for the approval of the emergency read, the second read for Bill 3432. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3433 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3433 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 605.010 of the Raymore City Code of Ordinances to exempt vendors in city-sponsored events from the requirements of obtaining an occupational license.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Staff has jokingly referred to this as the food truck bill, but it really does not do justice to all of the different vendors and individuals that we bring to the city during city-sponsored events that this would affect. Currently under city code, the city clerk is allowed to waive the occupational license requirement for a vendor who is attending only a farmer's market or a city-sponsored farmer's market event. What this bill before council will do will open that door a little bit wider to allow the city clerk to waive that occupational license requirement at all city-sponsored events. This includes the events that were attached in your packet. One of the items I'd like to point out is every item that has the asterisk or is bolded, those are events in which we would have a food truck or some sort of an outside vendor attending to provide a service for our residents at that event. And so you notice very quickly how many different events that this could affect. Currently, we require groups like a food truck or someone who's going to be selling something at one of our events to obtain a full occupational license, just as any brick and mortar establishment would. One thing I do also want to point out that while this would waive that requirement for an occupational license, it does not waive any other requirements. So things like a health inspection would still be required, insurance requirements would still be required, and other items that other jurisdictions may require. This merely waives the city's occupational license to bring in something new and exciting to a lot of the different events that we're hoping to promote within the community. I'm open to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Icky? Yes, Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question, even though it's not completed yet, would this exclude Hawk Ridge Park Amphitheater programming?
As long as it was a city-sponsored event, so say Summer Scene, the Arts and Music Festival, were to move to Hawk Ridge at the amphitheater, then this would encompass that event. If an event, a good example is now if a group were to rent Centerview or were to rent the amphitheater for a private event, any of their vendors would still need to have an occupational license, a caterer's permit, and other items that the city clerk maintains.
That was the key. If someone was to rent amphitheater, they still would have to get a
Correct.
license. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3433.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3433, amending city code for vendors at city-sponsored events.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3433. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Before we move on to regular public comments, I want to jump back up to I realize now I went right past the public comment after the full reading. A lot of public out there in the community or out here in our audience tonight, but if anybody would care to comment on that particular item, which was the emergency read item, I would entertain that them come to the podium and state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, even though we've gotten past it. I didn't see anyone out there that I thought might comment on that, but I did get past that, and I apologize. So I'll now open it up for regular public comments. Anyone that'd like to address the council at this time, please step forward and identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to Mayor Council communication. And Mr. Kellogg, I'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thing that I'll comment on tonight is the letter that was laid on upon the dais for all of us to read from Ms. Linda Benson. Is a very, very nice complimentary letter that she took time to write to us and staff. And to me, this does not come to any surprise to me. What does come to a surprise to me is the person took the time to write this out, to make it a part of the record. You know, this warms my heart, you know, because somebody else sees this besides us 9 up here. We see this every day, and everybody hears us preach this, but we honestly see this. So I want to thank Ms. Benson for taking the time. I would, you know, I assume, since this is January 16th, the date on this, I would assume that this went out to our park staff also, because they are...
That is correct, sir.
Very good, very good. I appreciate that, because I think it's important that the park board knows about this too, you know, so I'm just really impressed and heartfelt tonight for our staff's involvement, particularly Greta tonight. Greta's on the spot tonight because she was named in here several different times, and I appreciate her dedication and her concern and her help for the people of our community. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also echo Councilmember Kellogg's comments regarding Parks and Rec, and specifically Greta and Mrs. Benson for submitting the letter to us. That was very touching that she took the time to acknowledge the staff and what we've all learned, as Mr. Kellogg has said. Also, I'd like to address the first read of the budget item, the bill tonight regarding the command vehicle. I appreciate staff's indulging me on the questions and the discussion that followed that, but I also want to kind of relate what we at a civic community club that I'm a part of, we had the pleasure of having Chaplain Beckner attend and give us some insights to the Chaplain Corps and the services they provide to our law enforcement. And one thing that stuck with me was his statement, the residue of life. And when he made that statement and as he went to discuss what that means for our law enforcement and our EMTs, was very interesting. When you look at it from the perspective of what we do in a day, whether it be you're working in finance, whether you are a machinist, whether you are a pick an occupation. You have your day's activities that gets you stressed out. You have the good and bad of your day, and you go home. Now put yourself in the place, and you, as those of us who receive and read the police blotter, that's the residue of life for them. As they deal with the domestic abuse, as they deal with the suicidal ideations, as they pull over someone who is irate, as they deal with, you know, things that occurs to them throughout the day, and they go home. Now multiply that by every day of work, multiply that by the years of service in the police force, and the things they deal with. So those residues of life stick with them. And giving them the opportunity, and as the chaplains do, give them an outlet to discuss. So as tonight what we did, and it was discussed with the staff, giving them the tools to help them do their job. While it may be just a tangible vehicle, of $5,000, but it was at a discount, as we discussed tonight. As that vehicle is unseen, it gives them an opportunity unseen in that instance to go somewhere and find some refuge, find an opportunity to find some camaraderie, someone to help with them through whatever that scene incident requires. So I appreciate council and staff bringing that to our attention and having the ability as a community and as a city budget to do it in the manner in which we can do it, for the area that we can do it in. That way, as the need arise, our law enforcement and our EMTs and our fire department has the tools in place to do their job effectively, and that is to protect and serve us as necessary. And then we give them an opportunity to kind of shed, in some, as small as that may be, to shed that residue of life in that instance, so they don't take that home to their family. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the time. Thank you.
You bet. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of a little different than I do normally, but I was reading the economic indices for the last year, and we really need to challenge the council and staff in the next year. Every single major economic indice in the last year was negative. And I'm not sure, but it might have been for the last 2 years as well. That hasn't happened in a while, and most of us on the dais have not been here in a time of smaller funds than we've had recently. Hopefully, we do not enter into a recession, but we do, whatever does happen, we do need to be responsible for it and be even more conservative with our funds than maybe we have been in the last few years. Right now, we're doing great, but we want to continue to stay responsible about it in the next year. Hopefully things will recover, but that remains to be seen. So I will challenge all of us to make sure we continue to be good stewards of the money that we all pay in our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pretty brief here. We've done great. The city's done great. Our leaders have done great on your command vehicle is coming. Hopefully it'll be here soon. It's going to be a great acquisition to the city, and we can get it out hopefully when we get it to let the people see what we've actually paid for and bought and what it actually looks like and what it stands for, and that's a great acquisition. Mr. Mustine, the Parks and Rec. Ben, I've been wanting those lights on those little fields for a long time. I'm glad we're getting them. I love it when we're moving forward with our Parks and Rec, all the stuff you're doing, and staying ahead of this to get this 21,000 added in for the lighting that we need, seeing that Casey Variety, they jump in with that kind of money and donate and show that we're on top of it on some stuff we missed, and we're going to get it together. And I think that really tells them and says a lot for our Parks and Rec, how you guys handle this stuff. You're on top of it. You're making sure there's any cracks in the walkway that you get them plugged and filled up, and I appreciate that. But anyway, our staffing, our people, fantastic. We're moving forward, and that's what I like to hear. I know the people in Raymore love to see that and know that we're growing, but we do have a tremendous staff, and it was a real pleasure the other evening at the dinner, and it was a fun night. Really did a lot with that, and I really appreciate us being able to sit there and come in and join the staff and the city workers and be able to say thank you for all you guys do. It was great. My wife and I enjoyed it immensely. But Raymore's a great city. We're moving forward. I'm so excited for that, and we just got to keep our foot on the pedal and got to be moving forward and not looking back. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I want to recognize Mr. Troutman, chairman of the Park Board, for being here tonight. They had a number of items of interest that we voted on, and it is always good to see members of our boards and commissions that are here, but especially when they take their own time to volunteer to come and see how council views those things. So thank you, Mr. Troutman, for being here this evening. To channel Mr. Barber in your absence, Mr. Fearborn, I think you threw to 7 different receivers tonight, with the exception of Miss Bratton, who's in her rookie contract. So very well done, sir. Everybody at the 2 tables, with the exception of her and Mr. Mustine in the back. So you really spread the ball around tonight, sir. Well done. And then the final 2 things, a little bit more sobering, perhaps. Well, I do have one other thing. Mr. Townsend, you are perhaps one of the most eloquent statesmen in your speaking that I have ever encountered. Very well done, sir. Very well done. 2 somber things to bring up. If you didn't happen to catch the news before you made it to the meeting tonight, there were 5 Houston police officers that were shot in the line of duty. I discussed it with the mayor when I got here. We did not have an update. 2, I believe, in critical condition. I don't know if there's been a change in that since then. It is unfortunate that in our society that's become a more commonplace item. I hope we can get to a place where that goes away someday. And as many of the staff know, and perhaps some of the city council, a former police officer of ours died of natural causes, if you will, here within the last, I believe it was a week or so. Tony Yates, I knew Tony from the time he was a police officer to the time he was a local businessman here in town as well. So my prayers go out to his family and friends. Sorry to see him go. As you get older and you start looking at people that pass away that are younger than you, it reminds you how many years you've been on the planet. Again, my sympathies to Mr. Yates and his family and the law enforcement community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really kind of hard to follow, especially after Mr. Townsend and Councilman Kellogg's comments. Very, very good comments. In fact, I'm going to go back and watch this meeting again just to hear Mr. Townsend again, because that was really, really a great statement there. I was at the meeting he was at, and he, you know, I have to chair that meeting, so I didn't get to listen as good as he did. So I really do appreciate that. I'm going to be brief. I didn't plug in my engine heater on my car out there, and I want it to start. So I do want to thank the ERC committee for the hell of a party they threw. That was really a nice time. They do that. My understanding is they do that with their own money. They do their own fundraising. Is that correct?
Primarily, sir, yes.
Yeah, and so they put that all together, and they allow us as the council, they invite us, which is really super nice. I was double booked that night, and I made my wife kicking and screaming from our first thing that we had to go to, and she said we should have went here first. We shouldn't have went to our first party. So anyway, it was a good time. I really do want to thank staff, the whole that whole group that puts that together. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll also comment on Mr. Townsend. Very good comments tonight. Councilman Barber defined you as eloquent, and that was well said. Probably a description that never has and never will be spoken of me, but fitting for you, sir. I just had two quick things tonight also for myself. First of all, on the RAC, the basketball games or practices that were held this weekend, I was not able to attend, but my wife was there along with my 6-year-old, and she gave it 2 thumbs up, so very good job. My wife did say that she was impressed on how well run it was. She said it looked like they'd been doing this for years. So for an inaugural event or an opening event, they did a fantastic job of pulling that off and looked like they'd done it for years. Last thing I had is I wrote down the word potholes here, not because I'm seeing them in Raymore, but I'm reminded that it is pothole season. I haven't driven the whole city, but I'm not seeing very many, or I'm not seeing any here in the city so far where I live. But if I want to find some, I can just drive to the neighboring cities where I'm seeing quite a few. So a fantastic job by the Public Works Department on taking care of our streets. And this winter, it's been a tough time, but they've done a great job. And that concludes my comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, Jay pretty much stole my thunder tonight, but that's okay, because when I arrived here in '99, Tony was a police officer on the Raymore Police Department, and later became our canine officer before he moved on. But way too young to lose a young man like that in his mid-40s, and led a very vibrant life. Like Mr. Holman said, he started off as a police officer and then was a local business owner, became a part of a protection detail that went to Afghanistan, I think on 1 or 2 engagements with a private contractor hired by the U.S. government, but I know that he underwent a lot of additional training for that particular purpose. And Tony will be missed. He was a funny guy, a lot of fun to be around, and he was a good cop. So we're going to miss him. And then, as Jay said, also the 5 officers, please keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they undergo whatever necessary medical treatment they need to recuperate from that event earlier. And it is a special thanks to Mr. Icky. I appreciate you bringing up and talking about the Report of Concern program. I think that's an underutilized tool that people have in our community. I often get questions, how do I report? And I'm not sure how much easier we can make it, especially with access that most people have to right from their smartphones to the internet. But hopefully you don't get overworked now with the reporting of that. But it is a wonderful tool, and people really ought to utilize it more to report things within the community, other than 911 situations. We still need to call direct to that. But they really do make life much easier for our team as well when they're going out to take care of those items. And they have a wonderful follow-up program with that. And with that said, kudos to the Public Works Department. You guys are doing great stuff. Thanks to the board, thanks to the team out there. Some great things going to happen this summer. Hopefully we can get them done this summer and move forward with other projects that we can put our attention behind. So with that, I will end the comments from the mayor and council. We do not have a reason to move into executive session tonight, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.